We'll go ahead and get started with our post-qualifying. We're now joined by Kevin Harvick, driver of the number 4 Budweiser Jimmy John Chevrolet, who will start second in Sunday's AAA Texas 500. This is tied a career best start for Kevin at Texas Motpr Speedway, who also started second in April's Duck Commander 500. Talk about your run, and then just hoping to close the deal and finally get that first win here at Texas.
Yeah, I felt like our guys did a good job of making the car better in every round. Our car was consistent. We didn't quite have the speed in the very first round that some of the guys had. But I think when you look at this particular racetrack with the fall off and the way that the cars slow down, but it's still a really fast racetrack, you still have to pay attention to the fall off even in qualifying. So they did a great job of making adjustments, and we improved every round, and we're able to get a great starting position for Sunday night or Sunday.
Let's go open up for questions. If you could raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you. We'll start with Wolfgang.
Kevin, you're in qualifying, not even in Texas, but most of the tracks. Are you racing in qualifying trim, or you set the car already up in race trim?
We started practice in race trim, but the setups are really not that close, from practice to qualifying. So you'll have to change quite a bit on the car, to go to race trim.
Go over here to Drew.
Kevin, Drew Davison with the Star Telegram. Can you, obviously you won this chase format last year. At this stage, kind of what's the key to advance and move forward, and, kind of how do you feel about your team at this point?
I feel good about our team. I think we've overcome a lot of adversity. I think we've overcome a lot of situations and performed at the right times. And really, it's about survive and advance. It's not really what it looks like on a piece of paper. It's really about just surviving and advancing, no matter how it all adds up. So at this particular point, that's really our goal for the next couple of weeks, and whatever's presented to you on that particular weekend. You have to react to it and try to overcome it the best that you can. So we've overcome a lot of things as we've gone through this particular chase, and feel like the performance of the cars is still where it needs to be. I think that the 2 and the 22 have qualified better than us this year, but I think the only clean race we've had in the chase, really has been Dover. So I think if we can keep the performance of those cars where they need to be, every other week we've had something go wrong, and the performance for the most part has been there. It's just situations have continued to creep up, but we're still in it. So that's all you need to be at this point.
Dustin
Long, NBC Sports. Kevin, I've heard some different opinions that in the garage, talking to different people, that if we're involved in contact, and I feel like I didn't do anything wrong, that there's some that say I would still owe you a phone call, even though in one sense it would be a disingenuous sorry, or if nothing else, it allows you to yell at me or let me know that I still got one coming. How do you look at that? Have you ever called somebody or contacted somebody when you felt like you were in the right, and did it really make much of a difference?
No, I mean, I've definitely, you wind up in different situations, and you wind up communicating with people on different situations. But I've kind of followed this whole dilemma all week, and, I've been in a lot of trouble, and I've been suspended, and I've been parked. I've had, from the ownership side, I've had my trucks run into racing for a championship. So I've been on every side of this ball, and I've never had a penalty be the same. And for me, when you're involved in it, the details of it, and you go through the trailer and listen to all the explanations of why they arrived at the penalty that they arrive at. A lot of times when you step back and you think about it, it all makes sense, and you see where they're coming from. So, I don't think any of these situations are going to be the same. None of us know what that EFI data looks like from last week. None of us know the conversations that were had, before or after the race. Yeah. Well, I'm getting to that. So, if you want to hear the rest of it, just sit there and keep typing. So what I'm saying is the driver stuff is exactly the same. you look at the situation and hopefully a lot of times people understand and can go back and watch the tape in certain situations and know that it wasn't something that was intentional. If you make a mistake and it was a mistake, then most of the time you call and talk about it. So there's definitely different areas of how you react, and no situation, just like the penalties and the things that go with it, are the same because every situation is different, and every person that you're into those situations with is different.
Daniel.
Daniel McFadden, NBC Sports. We only have 3 races left in the Sprint Cup Series with Jeff Gordon as part of it. I was wondering, do you remember the first time you raced against him on a track, and also what are your favorite memories of racing against him?
Well, my favorite memory is getting my first win against Jeff by about 6 inches at Atlanta. I know that's probably a little bit biased, but I think one of the coolest moments for me is when we used to go to Las Vegas and test over the winter, and they used to have the Xfinity cars and the Cup cars. They just run on a track together. There wasn't separate test days, and the first car I pulled out behind was Jeff Gordon, and I remember that moment thinking about how cool it was because Jeff Gordon is a legend in the sport and was a legend at that time in the sport. So. He's meant a lot to the sport. Last week was unbelievable, for him and to have his family there and know how many times he's won at Martinsville and what it means to Hendrick Motorsports, with the Martinsville Speedway. Just sit back as a race fan. It was really cool, to just watch it and see it take place. So Jeff's meant a lot to the sport, and it's just great to have him. Going to be in the championship and going to go out the way that he is pretty special for not only himself but our whole sport.
Chris
Knight, CatchFans.com. Kevin, tomorrow is your final Xfinity Series race of the season for Junior Motorsports. How's your car, and how's it overall has been working with Junior Motorsports this year on the Xfinity side?
Yeah, we've had an up and down year for sure. We've been able to win a couple races and kind of lost the speed that we needed about halfway through the year, and the second half of the year hasn't been as good as the first half of the year. But those guys are a bunch of racers and still fun to work with, and be on the racetrack is a lot of fun. So it's my last race. We'll run a few less next year, and then that'll probably be the end of the Xfinity stuff for me after next year.
Okay, final question for Jim.
Jim at motorsport.com. Given your answer to Dustin, were you necessarily surprised by either NASCAR's penalty to Matt or that it was upheld?
Well, it's like I say, each situation is different. And I know a lot of those guys like to have opinions, and they all had a lot different opinions this week than they did the week before. But I think as you look at the scenario, you just don't know all the details. That's the hard part. And like I say, I've been in trouble a bunch. But when you see the word safety put in the penalty, it's probably not going to get overturned because I've had that warning a number of times, and when they believe there's intent, it's not going to be fun for you.
Kevin, thank you very much.
Yep.
Best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.